MD. Okay, I'm a family practice doctor, and I am very interested in how the Father helps us be healthy. And what we're going to be talking about today is something very up to date. It just happened last week, and in it we're going to see something, a glimpse into how the Father protects us. And as we're going through it, we have to guard against being arrogant that we know it and other people don't. So I'll explain it as we go along. We're talking about bacteria today because this is June the 4th, and just last week there was an announcement that a bacteria was isolated in Pennsylvania in a woman with an infection that has a plasmid in it, and I'll explain what plasmids are, that render that bacteria totally resistant to a last-ditch antibiotic that we have. So it's sort of this week's news. There isn't much. I saw this about 4 days ago, and there's nothing new on it in the last couple of days, so I don't know what's going on. But I do want to talk about bacteria a little bit on that single sheet that you got. I want, since probably none of you are bacteriologists, let me go over just a little bit. There's some terminology that you'll run across if you follow any of the links in the main handout. So I'm talking about superbugs. These are the bugs that are resistant to everything, and they're benign or infectious relatives, because as you probably know, we are covered with bacteria. Our skin is covered with bacteria. Our internal digestive system is full of bacteria, and they're very beneficial. If you get rid of all the bacteria, say on your hands, you'll start getting hand infections with that bacteria. So you don't want to be washing off everything, and you don't want to be sterilizing the gut of people. That's how people get really sick. So it's good, you need to know, but related to all of these different bacteria are the bad ones. And so there's general classifications that are from way back. I worked in bacteriology, and I don't want to tell you what years I worked in it, but several years before I started having children, I worked in the bacteriology department as a bacteriologist. And then later on, when I went to medical school, of course, I went back and looked at all, went through all these things many years later. And things keep changing, so the way things are classified gets changed, but it was kind of fun to come across something called Berkey's flowchart. The Berkey's Manual of Determinative Bacteriology is 8 pages long, and it divides up bacteria into all the different genus and species and classifications, and you definitely don't want to know that. So, but I had to go back and review some of the things I had forgotten to over the past few years. So we're just going to look at aerobic bacteria. There's aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic means they have to have oxygen to live. Anaerobic live without oxygen, and many of them can't live in the presence of oxygen. So we're just going to be talking about the ones, the aerobic ones, the normal ones that we run into all the time in general medicine. So there's a gram stain, it's called. And way back when the only way we had to study bacteria is we spread them out on a glass slide and stain them with a particular type of stain called gram stain. And some of them, some classifications, some groups of them stain purple, and they're called gram positive, and the others stain red or a light red, and they were called gram negative. So you kind of divide up the kingdom, the subkingdom of bacteria into gram positive and gram negative. And generally the ones we're looking at are the gram positive cocci. Those you come across G positive, C, which are gram positive, they're round. And that includes things like Staphylococcus, I left the H off, Staphylococcus, which includes MRSA and VRSA. You've heard of MRSA, which is the methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Now, Staphylococcus is one of the common bacteria on your skin, Staphylococcus epidermidis. So you have to divide them up. But anyway, Staphylococcus aureus is one of the ones that has caused disease for as long as I've been in medicine and waiting for that. And then it began to develop resistance to methicillin, which is one of the really big guns. And so you hear people dying of MRSA. And now there's one is vancomycin resistant Staphylococcus. So it's MRSA and VRSA. So those are the bad guys, but they're all Staphylococcus. And then there's Streptococcus, like strep throat. And there's also strep that lives on your skin. As an Enterococcus, and anytime you see entero, it means usually from the gut. And Micrococcus. So, I mean, those are just examples. And then gram-negative rods are the ones that, if you look on the front sheet of the second page, you see they're kind of rods. And there's different sizes and shapes and things. These are the sort of pinkish rods. And that includes E. coli. You've all heard of E. coli, infectious E. coli that causes diarrhea in foreign countries and here too. And also, it's just a normal inhabitant of the gut. So when they go testing water, they test for coliform bacteria, which is the E. coli, to see if there's a contamination from sewage. So most of them are pretty benign until they get into other parts of your body, like a urinary tract infection. That's the most common urinary tract infection. Other ones are Haemophilus. The herb that used to cause really bad infections in children. Pseudomonas, which is soil bacteria, but also causes bad lung diseases sometimes. Enterobacter or Enterobacter ace, Salmonella, which causes typhoid and several other things, and Shigella and Klebsiella that causes some really bad lung diseases. So all of these things are sort of around, and there's the good guys and the bad guys. Now we want to look at plasmids, because that's what we're dealing with today. That's the next down on the list. It's a ring of DNA that is carried by a bacteria. Generally the gram-negative rods, but not always. And it often contains the genetic material to make the bacteria resistant to an antibiotic. It's like a really nasty guy that's gotten in there to defeat us. And when the bacteria get together like this or like this, they will transfer that plasmid from one bacteria to the next. They've seen it happen over and over again. This is one, I mean, we've known this for many, many years. And it may carry the genetic information to confer resistance to any one particular antibiotic. And the one we're talking about today that has come from China is named MCR1. I have no idea what that stands for. But it confers resistance to an antibiotic called colistin. Now, we've been dealing with superbugs that are resistant to things for a long time. And the one antibiotic that remained working for all other bugs was polymyxin, or colistin. It's polymyxin E. Polymyxin B is in some of the topical antibiotics that you might buy, you know, like a triple antibiotic, topical, over the counter. And so what has happened is that the colistin has been around since 1959 to treat infections and has been used off and on. It's been used for salmonella and everything, and serious blood and wound infections. It's very toxic to the kidneys.
Yours was yours, don't change, and it don't deviate, and it stays the same. It's